Hey guys, Nick Phelps here, consulting architect with Logix One. Coming to day 4 of Cisco Live. Just going to give you a brief rundown of some of the key points that I think we saw today. Started off the day with a little walking around the World of Solutions trade show floor, which was really good. Met up with some cool vendors, and again, I spent most of my time back at the Cisco booth, kind of discovering some of the new product releases and listening to some of the new product demos that they had. Again, just shortly after that was the keynote. Started off with Blair Christie, kind of introducing, setting the tone, talking about some of the events going on here. Blair Christie was shortly followed by Rob Lloyd, who introduced some new products. Right on stage under a big black veil was basically the new 7700 series Nexus. It's quite the impressive machine to look at. Basically was the 7720, I think, was the one that was introduced today, along with the 7710. I think it was either 7710 and 7720. I'm getting so many product numbers in my head right now. I'm having a hard time keeping track of them all. But it's basically based around a couple of key architecture changes. One of them being front to back airflow. So all of the cards, all the F2 cards, and all the F3 cards are going to be released for the 7700 series. We're finally going to have front to back airflow inside of a Nexus, and we're also not doing dedicated fan tree U's, meaning we're not going to dedicate U space basically to fan trays, which is great. So we're getting more density in the same amount of space. It's a pretty cool deal. Some good product there. We also saw the release, and we talked about it briefly, the release of the the 6800s. We also talked about a little around the 6800IA, the 6880X, and the 6807XL, all part of the new 6800 line, basically the next advancement in the 6500 series. It's the next big thing in the 6000 series line. One thing of note there that's pretty cool is the 6500 series supervisors and line cards are both supported on the 6800 series, so it's backward compatible. But also going forward, we're going to be able to make use of some of the higher density soups. Soup 2T is current. The next soups are going to be able to support a little more. Like, for example, the 6880, we have 80, 10 gig, 2-to-1 oversubscribed. It has the automatic extension of the integrated access or instant access switch, basically the 6800IA that can connect into it, similar to how FX connects into a Nexus right now. Anyway, more detail to come on that, though, absolutely, and feel free to reach out to us and have conversations. We had some really good talks with placement and use cases and where some people are deploying these things and how they're making use of some of their old technology with some of the new. So feel free to strike up those conversations with myself or any other counterpart here in the solution architecture team on the infrastructure side. We also looked at the 1000V cloud extender, which was really cool. Again, I guess I'm getting a little ahead of myself. This was all after the fact, after the keynote. So to wrap up the keynote section here, we had Edzard Overby talk a lot about services and Cisco services and how they kind of help some integration and some rollout and the way they're trying to get more engaged with their customers, not just from a SmartNet perspective, but also from a engaged services perspective. So again, just to kind of recap some of the other pieces that we looked at today, I joined another session. Surprise, surprise. I'm going to tell you more about Cisco One and One PK. I couldn't help myself. I know I'd already spent, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday basically going through nothing but Cisco One framework to understand how to integrate it into some of our technology roadmaps here at Green Pages, Logix One. But the title of this class was The Hitchhiker's Guide to One PK. And it was great because what the instructor started off saying is she brought back probably like my favorite point in the whole book, was she said, now look at this cloud world. Look at what we're doing. She's like, I know what you're thinking, right? She's like, I'm not a programmer. I'm not a coder. I'm a network engineer. I deal with the CLI. That's what I like to deal with. Our customers, deal with us because we have specialties in that area. So, obviously the people that are specialists in the infrastructure space have been asking me, well, what does that mean to a command line jockey? What does that mean to someone who thinks like a packet day in and day out and moves things across a command line if we're going to this, this programmatic driven world? And she said, she brought back a part of the book and said, what does it say on the very first page of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy when you open it up and you look at it? And Ford Prefect points it out. It says, don't panic. And basically the pieces that simplification is kind of the name of the game, and giving roles and responsibilities to people that didn't have it before and giving the ability is really the name of the game. But anyway, we talked about that earlier in the week. I won't go into it too much except for the fact that we did cover a little more into usable scenarios and how people are making use of some of this 1TK stuff. A quick couple of glances at it, I guess, would be looking at cable verification. When you build when you build a Nexus 5500 config and you're going to auto deploy it, and you basically have to have a cable map that gets matched to enable that connectivity to work the way it's designed. Your topology has to map your configuration, obviously. It has to match. So one of the things that it can do with the advanced topology mapping abilities that's built into the SDK in the one platform is you're able to actually verify that a cable topology matches a configuration to make sure that you're not going to cause yourself any issues when you plug in a new switch and cable it up and turn it on and auto provision it for the first time. So that's something that's new. And it actually does that through a mix of things I found out today. It's not just CDP, obviously. It's CDP, topology graph, edges, nodes, and topology changes all get brought into this discovery module that actually gets spit out through the API and some predefined variables there. That's pretty cool. Another thing that we looked at today was the ISR G2. I went to a session on that, and I actually did a couple of demos on that in the Cisco World of Solutions booth, or booths, I guess I should say. I'm tagged from all their booths, by the way. Let's see. We got all my what was it from Office Space? All my flair here. So I'm loaded up with Cisco flair. I got my sufficient 7 pieces to get entered into a Journey signed guitar, something or other. I forget what it was, or a Plantronics headset if you got 4, which I didn't win because I don't win anything ever. But anyway, yeah, we talked about the ISR G2s a little bit and some of the things you can do for branch office mobility and enablement, which is basically you can have some of the UCS E-Series blades running right inside the G2s. I know everyone's kind of seen that. It's kind of old news, but it was really cool. We saw some cool demos on it. We saw some usable stuff. They actually tied that into the cloud connector. So you look at, and I'm going to be looking at this more tomorrow, so I might get some of this wrong. The way some of the cloud connector stuff works, though, along with their 1000V cloud extender, which are 2 very different things, by the way. So you look at what's happening with UCS running on top of an ISR G2, but with the cloud connector, you can basically bridge and seamlessly move machines and workloads between private and public cloud resources. So they have these connectors pre-built for Amazon. They have them pre-built for lots of different use cases, and you can basically migrate a lot of this stuff between private cloud and public cloud pretty seamlessly with some of these pre-built little modules that go into this guy. And then you also have something that ties in through vCloud Director and into the 1000V, where you can actually have a 1000V live out in the public cloud. So you can actually control with the same policy that you use in your private cloud, VMs that you migrate into the public cloud. Now, granted, one thing to note that they did point out is it's a cold migration, right? Because you're moving between different CPU architecture, so you really can't do a live migration. But the cold migration that can take place is pretty sweet. That's something that hasn't been available before. There's been a lot of methods of importing and moving that stuff and moving workloads between those types of environments, and doing it all through vCloud Director on one pane of glass has not been one of those options. So having the 1000V out there is pretty neat.